better known on the Discord as Throbbing. No, definitely not known as Throbbing. So that keyboard is currently dead. I'll try this one. Hello and welcome to another Retro Crazy. Sometimes you sit down, as I did this morning, with a small cake and a cup of tea for 11sies, and I just had this odd hankering to do a BBC, so, well, here we are. Now, I was on the Retro Hardware Discord a little while ago. That's run by a great guy called Lee from More Fun Making It. If you haven't seen his videos, go see them, superb. And a post came up on the trade section from Bobbin Threadbare, a guy called Steve, who was selling a BBC. And, well, I bought said BBC, and here it is. He did say, missing case screws, it's got a broken post for one of the power, the VCC internally. It's really not been touched, but I also purchased with it some other things. There's a mouse, there's a pair of joysticks, there's a disk drive, there's a whole bunch of stuff. So yeah, I may turn this into a little series. I don't know, we'll see how we go, because I did actually pick up a second BBC prior to this, which has a number of other things, including something I've been after, which was a cub monitor. The cub monitor I definitely want to look at, because this setup of a BBC and a cub monitor is what I remember from school. Simple as. Right, well, first thing I think I need to do is finish my cake and finish my tea, make sure my hands are not too sticky, and then let's take all this off and see what we're working with. And there we are. The case is off because obviously that's pre-disconnected. I can see the broken VCC here. Looks like it goes down here. And we've got some wiring which goes to a large phono port at the back. So it looks like it's had a modification for audio out. Okay, so what do we need to do? Well, if you know me, then there are certain things I am going to do. I need to replace all the caps because I just don't trust old caps at all, especially reefers, which I'm going to find 2 in here, and I am not powering the system up until those are gone. It looks like most things are ready just to pop off, so I can take all this apart, and let's start by lifting out the power supply, and we'll see what we're working with. There we are, that's everything out. Now, what I did realise, obviously, when I was taking this off for the phono extension out the back, I reckon that's the other speaker wire, because there was only one speaker wire on it, and that is the speaker connector. So it looks like what they've done is just take this out the back to give basically an output to another source, so you could amplify it or whatever. But with everything out, let's put the main board to the side for the time being, and let's have a good look at this, because yeah, because reefer, there's one right there. Can you see this horrible thing? No power going into this until that's gone.
Power supplies are dangerous. There are components in these that can hold a charge long after they're unplugged from the mains. So if you're unsure what you're doing, go seek professional advice.
Now these are an absolute pain to get into, but get into it we shall. There are the odd screw there, and we do have 1, 2, 3 screws here. They are still sealed under. Ooh, I've just seen, yes, something very dead. You know what I was saying about reefers? Let me zoom in. Can you see the dead reefer? It's ruptured. It's blown its guts. Yeah, these things are a nightmare. Okay, let's get this apart. And there we are, power supply is out, and yeah, you can see how badly this reefer has blown right down the side. This one's still intact, but probably not for long. I can see the crazing right along the top, so that's not so good. So the first thing on my list is I'm going to lift all of these caps out, and we're going to replace them. So just a reminder of the preference way I do this. I take a list of where everything is, and then once I've got a list of where everything is and the values, I mark the board, and hopefully I've marked between all the relevant caps. So now let's get these off and replaced. So with the switch apart, we can see just how bad this is. It's all carbonised. The switch is just a rocker. It pushes on this end, which causes the tail to lift up. This makes contact with the copper sections here to transfer the power from one to the other. I'm going to give those a bit of a clean, because that's not great power transfer. Ideally I would like to be able to get these out, they just don't want to come. They're keyed, so the copper, or the metal, possibly copper, is buckled down so it jams. I've tried bending it flat to push through, it just does not want to come. I mean, there's not a lot of gap in there to move, but it doesn't take much for it to jam on the plastic. So let's give this all a clean, and we can put the switch back together and then finish reassembly of the power supply. So I decided to give it one last go, and they came. So let's just pop these out. Look at the back edge, and yeah, you can see how carbonised that is. So give everything a clean up, pop them back in and rebuild the switch. And the last thing to check is this fuse, and then give everything a clean. So it is a 3 amp fuse, that's good. Happy with that. Let's just check it. Fuse is good. And there we are, we've got it back in showing 3 amp. So give this cable a clean in a minute, but she's ready for testing. So the power is now on, and just as a reminder, this is live. The minute I flick the switch, we have full voltage going through here. Do not put your hands anywhere near something that's obviously marked as danger high voltage. So the question is, first of all, when I do this, does it go bang? And the answer is no. That's always good. So let's get everything set up and find out if we have any outputs. So I'm just going to go in through a couple of these connectors, and we have 5 volts.
minus 5 volts, which is a little low. Okay, and this connector has various outputs. So let's see if we can work out what is what. So as far as I'm aware, this should be 5 volts, 12 volts, minus 5 volts. So yeah, minus 5 is a little bit low, but the power supply is quiet and doing exactly what it should. Let's pop this to the side, because next we're going to have a look at that motherboard. I've given the board a cursory clean, just to get the worst of the dust off this top edge. And I've also broken out the new mat because it's a little bit bigger, and yeah, this really doesn't fit on my original blue mat. It would be nice to have an ultrasonic cleaner and give this a good ultrasonic clean, but yeah, I don't own one. I don't really have the space for one at the moment. Hopefully that will change, but yeah. So I'm going to be replacing these 6 caps, and I'm going to replace this broken post. Now the post is available off of eBay, that you can buy sets of them. I ordered some, they just haven't arrived. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can take this, which is a connector. It's the right width. It's obviously not designed to go into a motherboard, but I'm going to see if I can flatten this all down so that it will actually go through the hole and give me the connection point I need. Can't say it's definitely going to work, but it will allow me to get it up and running while I wait for the correct part to turn up, because obviously if I put that on, it's considerably taller than it would need to be. So I'm going to see if I can cut this down a little bit and get it to work. Okay, let's get these caps out and crack on. Right, that's the board all recapped. We've got a new standoff in here ready for connector, and it's absolutely rock solid. So let's just do some checking. We're going to make sure that this is connected where it should be. So there, and yep, so it's going both sides. I may have damaged a trace, I don't know. When I was checking, I noticed that this didn't seem connected to anywhere and the pad was gone. I may have done that. However, it's now going where it should do, and more importantly, oh, can you spot the repair? Yeah. Let me just zoom down so you can see what I've done, and I may actually need to bring this closer. Spot the repair? Tiny thin Kynar wire. Let's get this back into its case, which has been all washed and cleaned, and that'll allow us to move on to the keyboard. So looking at the keyboard, it's in not too bad condition, a little bit of dust, but nothing serious at all. What I am going to do is lift off the speaker. I'm going to fit a new cable to it, and that'll allow me to have a junction which I can disconnect and lift the keyboard out separately without having to do all this desoldering. I think that would be the most sensible thing. Right, let's get this cap done. Let's give it a dust and get the speaker off. So the keyboard is all done. I've got the speaker and the mount ready to go back together. We've got a replacement cap, great. But I decided I wanted to do something a bit different, because this, in all fairness, was just a mess inside the case. Didn't like it. Yeah, it's got the original connector, but I can't pull these out. It's like a really thick heat shrink, and it's absolutely rocks. Oh, And of course now it comes out. Yeah, it's not in the best condition. I want to replace all this. So I did. But I wanted something a little bit different. So if I ever want to take the keyboard out, I added in a connector and I redid the other wiring in the actual BBC itself so that this can plug in and out, and great. Tidied everything up, hid all the wiring so it looks much neater. So I've got some reassembly to do, and once the keyboard has got its speaker back, then everything can go back together. Now, I did also purchase a screw set, so I've got the missing screws for the keyboard and all that sort of thing. So I'm just going to go and batter on and get all of this back together. And there we are, one completely reassembled BBC Micro. I am missing the perspex that goes over here. I'll try and pick one up. But back together, screwed together, all holding nicely, but does it work? Well, here we are at testing, ready to find out if this does anything or just simply start smoking. Now, power's on at the wall. What we should get, if I remember, is a beep, a dir-deed from the BBC. That's doing its tests, and the final beep is for the keyboard, and we should get a display. So let's find out. And that's a solid tone. So that is not what we're expecting. Okay, let's open her up and see if we can find out what's going on. So before I do any sort of diagnosis, I'm going to pop out all of the chips that are in sockets. I'm going to use a little bit of deoxit and I'm going to reseat everything. So hopefully you can see these legs do not look good. They've been soldered on right the way to the bottom. That's certainly going to thicken up the leg and can cause problems with these. So hopefully the chip is still okay and the socket is. I may have to replace the socket though just to make sure. And with those all done, well, we can simply switch on with the speaker connected and find out if we get the twin level beep. Right, with everything in place, now let's give it a go. Put the power on. I beeped. Okay, did not expect that. Right, off. I'm going to pop the case on, just protect it a little bit, and let's see if we get a display. So obviously the case is not back on and everything's kind of to the side, because when I put the case back on, went to test, I just got the beep again. So something's not right. I do know on some of the chips there are soldered legs here, here and here, and that can make the contacts quite wide, open them up, and these sockets might not be making a great connection. So we're still back at the point where, okay, now we're getting a beep, but I'm not getting anything on screen. So we've definitely got an intermittent connection somewhere in here. Oh goody. But I also note, you'll maybe not see because it is off camera, I have no LEDs on the keyboard. Do I have caps lock? Nothing. So something is still not right. There's an intermittent connection and maybe another fault. So the second beep normally means it's coming out of reset. Going to have to do a little bit more digging. Now, I do have a whole bunch of stuff. I've got various things I found on forums, which, you know, just tells me things to try and check.
Also, pinout for the 6502. This is just a sheet I put together, which is the common 8-bit CPUs, so the Z80, 6502, 6800 and 8080, and the various pins. Quite handy. And this just goes into, you know, a couple of different places I got information from. Things like, you know, take out the 6522s and test. You know, apparently the 74 LS245 is quite a common failure point, so I've got spares of those ready, but now it's beeping and coming out of reset by the sounds of it. Great. So I've done a little digging and dug out another BBC that I've got, which I haven't looked at, grabbed its keyboard, and interestingly it's using one of these ribbon cables. Perfect size, and as long as they're in the right place they should work fine. Different, nice little repair. That was out an issue 4 board machine, so let's see what happens with this keyboard. Of course we get the beeps. I think one of these is bad somewhere. Yep, somewhere around here. But we get an LED. Now let me move this so it's a little bit clearer. Try and block out some of the light. We've got an LED, and caps lock goes on and off, so that's great. Shift lock trips it over. Excellent. Brake should reset this, which it does. Now to test the cassette and see if this is actually doing some form of running, it should be star M.1 or star motor 1 for on, and we heard a click. Will this work? Yep, star motor 0 switches it off. VDU space 7 I think should do something. So that definitely does something, but we get no change. Let's try changing screen mode. Mode 0. Or is it star mode 0? No, we're not getting any change on the screen to either. Mode 7. No. And we're still running, so the computer seems to be running, but we've got no display. That's going to bring us down to a number of possibilities. Maybe where it all begins, the 6502, maybe the chip here, because I think that one is dealing specifically with the video. We have life on the machine. Obviously the keyboard, I still need to work out why that's not running, but we have life here. And to be honest, it could be the connector on that other keyboard, because the pins have been soldered as well. So one of the first things I want to do is I'm going to lift out all of these. I'm going to clean off the solder as much as I can, because that needs to come off. It could mean that I need to replace the sockets as well, because there's bad connections, and the thickness of the solder on these is going to have pushed those connectors open. So 1, 2, 3 of the ICs I'm going to have to do, because they all show signs of solder. So yeah, 3 new sockets to start with, I think, to try and resolve whatever's happening around here with this very, very bad intermittent connection that's causing this to flake out a little bit. So just before I remove all of the solder, I did notice something as I was powering down. If I select source on the telly, right, and then OK that, it comes up and tells me it's SCAR test video, 50 Hz vertical, and that's all. However, if I go back to source and OK and then power on, it comes up and says PAL. So it's detecting there is a video output and it is a black screen. So that's good, because it is trying to put something out.
Well, that's everything cleaned up and done. New sockets in, not the greatest sockets, but what I had to hand at the time. The old sockets were single wipe, so yeah, a bit of cheapening out there by Acorn. I have cleaned up the legs of the 3 chips, and I've cleaned the connector here. So let's see if it's made any difference. Well, that was a straight power on beep, but still nothing from the keyboard. No LEDs. Nothing at all that I can see. Let's just in case. Right, certainly nothing from that side of it at all. I'm going to unplug, go back to the test keyboard that I've brought out and see if we've still got normal life. Right, so we're back to this test keyboard. I'm going to use this harness. I want to see if this harness is working, so we should get our LEDs coming on. Let's see. So I do get LEDs. Caps is working, shift, brake is resetting. Cassette motor, I heard it click. And off. So yeah, we've now got this, what looks to be stable. So whichever of these sockets was dodgy, I'm going to suspect the one on the 6522 down here. And now we need to work out why we've got no video first, and then we'll move on to why we've got no keyboard. So I've dug out the issue 4. As you can see, it's got a sidewise expansion in it. I've recapped the power supply because obviously this hadn't been done, and I want to just make sure that this is running so that I know that all the chips I want to lift out for testing onto the other machine are working fine. And that I would normally do off camera. Now let me show you this running. You'll hear the small beep if I move over. But again, nothing on the screen, and I thought that was a bit odd. So I dug out, let me move this, show the back edge, hopefully without knocking everything. You can see a second cable plugged in here, and this is RF. So let me pop this back so you can see that it's definitely lit down here. And if we swap over the source to the TV, that's strange because it was working. Hold on, let me do a quick bit of fine tuning. Oh, hold on. Oh, I'm an idiot. I had the wrong SCART on. Is there 2 listed? SCART. Oh. Every day's a school day. Sometimes you just realise you're an idiot. Ah dear. How embarrassed do I feel? Right, let's pop back over to the other machine. Let's see what happens this time, and I'm still using the keyboard from the issue 4. Yep, there we go. Let's check. Right, that's all doing what it's supposed to. Let's swap over to the other keyboard and just confirm the other keyboard definitely isn't working. So I haven't connected up the speaker, but I've definitely got no LEDs on the keyboard, and I do have, interesting, right, the keyboard is running, I just have no LEDs. Okay, give me a second, I'm going to lift all this out of the way and we'll have a look at the keyboard. So looking at the keyboard, we know the other keyboard works, so it's not a problem with the computer itself. The most likely culprit supposedly is going to be a broken trace. I have got the keyboard here, so I'm just going to do a little bit of testing and just check continuity around the board. So you can see we go right the way around to here, absolutely fine on this entire run, which heads up here, and so that's absolutely fine. Just check, that's fine. This comes around here, jumps across, which is fine. If we check here, that runs to here. Yep. Yes. Yes, these are resistor packs, so we should get, they're not resistor packs, they're resistors. So 1, 2, 3 are all there. This one comes along to here. This one here, which I'm going to guess jumps across. Oh my goodness, where do you go? No, hold on. My goodness, right across there. And jumps across to here. So they're all fine. Interesting. Okay, where do these go? Well, we know the voltages have to be right. Again, into a chip. But then these are doing the decoding for the keyboard. And if there was no voltage there, then it wouldn't decode the keyboard. Do we have faulty LEDs? Is that possible?
As a test, all I've done is soldered on an LED, a replacement LED, using some cable. So let's see if this will actually power up and, more importantly, illuminate. And it does. You can see that quite clearly, I hope. It has illuminated. So that's weird if all 3 of the LEDs have blown. So let's replace them.
Right, let's do a little bit of testing. I have now replaced this cable. This cable seems to be a bit intermittent, and I've replaced it with a 34-pin floppy drive cable, not obviously the twisted section for the second drive. It is an old cable, as you can see. It will need a clean. It's also quite long, but that does allow me a little bit of freedom in using this. So let us see what happens when I power it on now. There we go, nice and bright. Okay, let's try the motor. And it's on too. Superb. Right, let's put it back together. So the BBC's done, back together, nice bright LEDs. So quite happy about that. Obviously it's a shame it's not complete, which is why I've got one of these. More importantly, it puts the badge back where it should be. So let me just gently flex this under. And there we are. One completely restored, refurbished BBC Model B, issue 7. And I'm very happy with that. So thank you for watching. So please remember to like and subscribe, hit the thumbs up icon, it really does help the channel grow, and I will see you on the next Retro Crazy or Retro Crazy Mini Bite.